Okay, so we're ready to go. Morning, everybody. It's Al Emery from Momentum. This fortnight's webinars on MYOB Exo CRM. I'm on the end of quite a bad cold, so excuse me if I'm coughing down the line a bit. I'll do my best to keep it to a minimum. So today we're going to go through as many aspects of Exo CRM as we can. In particular, how you can deal with managing contact information with both your customers as well as prospective customers, and dealing with sales opportunities and quoting through to converting a successful quote or opportunity into an order or a job. We'll look at the marketing side of things, including dealing with contact lists and what you can do with those, and marketing campaigns, and time permitting, we'll have a look at sales budgets as well. So Exo CRM is integrated throughout Exo and has live access to customer information, stock information, pardon me, pricing information, and also contacts and prospects. So some of that same information is equally accessible in, for example, job costing or Exo business or finance. But CRM is really for people who probably mostly do sales and quoting and don't necessarily do transactional processing in the system. But it's really down to the customer. You know, some people in certain businesses do multiple roles, and so therefore might need access to both CRM and Exo business, or CRM and job costing, or just one. So let's jump into Exo CRM. It pretty much looks and feels like all the other modules as far as the design is concerned and the layout of the screen. And even the default screen is really designed with, I guess, a salesperson or an estimator, someone who does quoting or chasing sales in mind. So you have, like the other modules in Exo, different tabs across the top, and within those, access to different features of the system. So, for example, the My Day tab, this is really a collection of a few different screens or widgets positioned for, I guess, the best functionality. So this is an example of the My Day is really the calendar. Recent items is records that have been accessed most recently by the person who's logged in. List of opportunities that are due this month, so that's potential sales to be closed this month. And this is sales orders that haven't been processed yet. So like any screen in Exo, these widgets or dashboards can be moved around, updated, and positioned in different parts of the screen, depending on what the person wants to see. So some of the terminology is slightly different compared to the other Exos, where we've got maintained companies. So in CRM, MYOB have basically combined a company search. So if you look at all companies, you'll see some that are green, some that are red, and some that are black. And there's a little column there which shows the difference. So green ones are customers or debtors, red ones are creditors or suppliers, and black ones are non-accounts, or if you like, prospects. So a non-account can basically be any business that is not a customer of yours yet, but might become a customer. If we look at what information is available to someone using CRM about a customer, it's virtually exactly the same as the debtor account screen in Exo Business or Job Costing. You have all the same information, but there's just a little bit less that a CRM person can do with it. So you've got the main details tab for each customer, which has all exactly the same information: credit terms, price level, turnover, and age balances. And somebody in CRM, depending on their permissions, could update company information like this. They've got access to all the same tabs, so the Details To tab, which is normally, how do people pay you, how do they get their invoices and statements. You've got Contacts, so this is the same in Exo Business and Job Costing. There will be a Contacts tab for each debtor, where you can add and maintain multiple different contacts, being the people that you deal with at that business. When you're dealing with contacts, if you tick the Sync with Outlook tick box, what that causes to happen is if you save that contact, it will save it into your Outlook address book. So the contact will then also be available in your email system. If you have your phone syncing with your email system, then that will mean that you'll also have that contact in your phone. The person can see all the transactional history for any customer that they're inquiring on. So if it's basically obviously a debtor, they can look at previous invoices, look at a copy of it, print it, send a copy of it to the customer. Same with orders. So these are all exactly the same tabs that I'd be seeing if I was accessing this data from Exo Business. So I can look at current and previous orders that might have been processed for that customer, extra fields or custom fields, any special pricing that might be in place for that customer, jobs that are in progress for that customer, notes, history notes, documents that might be attached to that customer. Analysis tab, which is basically a bunch of dashboards showing sales history for a particular customer. Relationships I'll come back to. Opportunities are basically quotes or potential sales to a customer. And then you've got activities and serviceable units or assets. Just got a question, just give me a moment. So the question is, can customer contacts be identified in different groups? The answer is yes. I'll show you a few examples of that when we get into contact lists and marketing. So bear with me and I'll come back to that one. So another company type is a non-account or a prospect. So you can filter your list of companies, for your own prospects or all prospects. And you can create a new prospect at the time. So I'll go through how to do that, but I'll do it by way of an example of an opportunity. Okay? So most CRMs have a concept or terminology called opportunities. and Exo is no different. An opportunity is a potential sale, and that potential sale might end up in Exo as either a sales order for products that you might be supplying them, or it can be a job for a particular service that you're going to provide. So let's look at that. This is the Opportunities tab, and you can see a few aspects. One is it automatically shows me a list of my opportunities, and these are opportunities that I've been personally dealing with. I can make a custom view because I would probably just want to make this my active opportunities. I don't really need to see the ones that I've finished with. So you get some nice features by way of being able to create custom lists of stuff. So let's say my active opportunities, and they're defined as active in that they have any stage or status except closed, won or lost. So I can now use that list, and now I get a much different list. So I refine that. If I want to make it just mine, then I would basically be saying so a salesperson might have a list of their active opportunities. A sales manager would probably see all active opportunities, as an example. Over on the right-hand side, it's a dashboard of the opportunities in progress, broken down by the stage they're at and the value. So pipeline is a common terminology in different CRMs, and people often want to see, well, what of the opportunities or quotes they've got going, what is the likely value of sales in different months, depending on the stage the opportunity's in. So all that's doable. Let's do a new opportunity from scratch. And I'm going to do, I'll call this a quote for maintenance. So let's say it's a company we've not dealt with before, so we want to create a new company. Let's say their name is ABC Boats. If I type that in and hit tab, then it will search for it. If it finds it, it will return me the matching record. If it doesn't find it, I can basically click new, and it automatically puts that name in the company name, and then I can just put in their phone number and email address. Okay, so I can add a new company or a prospect in just a couple of keystrokes. I can come back to that company later and fill in the rest of their information, like their address, etc. But just to get the opportunity set up, I don't need to. Same with a contact. Bob Smith, I'll look for him. If he doesn't exist, I can hit new. And I can copy the company details into his record, which would automatically put in the address and everything if I had already filled that out. So some of the things that you can do when you're setting up Exo CRM is you can decide on different opportunity types. That's pretty common, so there might be, it depends on the type of good or service you provide to the customer. So it could be supply only, it could be supply and deliver, it could be maintenance, it could be large projects. It's really just your list to decide. And it really just gives you the ability to look at your potential sales and your success rate when you're doing quoting for different types of quotes. So I'll just call this a project. You can make your own list of lead sources. So, how did this opportunity or this potential sale come about? We'll say it was from the website. And then you can have different stages. So these are stages relating to your sales process as opposed to stages of a job, for example. So you can have as few or as many of those as you need. Some businesses have just 2 or 3, like inquiry, quote, finished, received a purchase order. But if your sales process goes for some time and goes through a few different steps, then obviously you can have more. I'll say it's qualified at this point. Your due date is usually when are we expecting to receive a purchase order or signed commitment. And the other dates that you use, which is when do they want the work done or when do they want the goods delivered. And those can be down here using fields. So in our own CRM, we've got about 20 different fields down here, different drop-down lists of information. So we have so I've just got another question. Question is, can you associate a contact with more than one account? Some people are associated with several debtors. For example, Bob is a manager of a big company and is general manager for multiple smaller sites. Yes, you can link one contact to an unlimited number of companies. And those companies can be customers, suppliers, or prospects. The system doesn't care. So I'll show you an example of that as well. So I'll come back to my opportunity, and since we've got a couple of questions on contacts, we'll look at contacts. All right, so contacts are people. And you can search on the contact by anything you like, name, phone number, email address, what have you. So let's say we've got Bob Chancellor. We can look into his contact record, and it's pretty standard. We've got his name, his address, email address, phone, fax. Now there's 2 ways you can link a contact to a company. The primary company they're linked to can go here. But if they're linked to multiple companies, then in addition to this, or instead of this, you can use the Accounts tab. Okay, so this is telling me that Bob is linked to Knight Nickel Autos. I can drill into Knight Nickel Autos, and I will see that they are a debtor. I can add Bob to as many additional debtors and creditors as I like. So I'm going to add him to all car parts. I'm going to add him to a creditor. All right, so now I've basically got one person linked to 3 different companies, 2 of which are debtors and 1 is a creditor. That makes sense? Aside from linking him to different companies, I have 2 additional ways of categorizing Bob in a way that I might then use to create a marketing list. So Exo has a feature called marketing classes. So every contact will have a marketing tab, and there will be a list of marketing classes. They probably just say marketing class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you can rename those to anything you like. So you can click on the marketing classes button and populate those. Now what you populate them with would normally relate to some kind of categorization that you want to use from a marketing perspective. So it could be the industry they're in, it could be the role that they do, it could really be anything. because whatever it is, and one contact can belong to multiple marketing classes, retail and resellers, for example. I can then do a query and say, right, get me all of the contacts that are retail clients, and then I want to send them an email. So you can use marketing classes to do that. Marketing classes are selectable from the contact search screen. So you can basically say, right, just show me any contact that has that class ticked, and you can see that I get 2 or 3 or 5. I can select multiple, and I'll get a bigger list. Now I can copy and paste that into Excel, or I can just say select all and create an email to send to that list. Or I can use them. I can export those contacts to my Outlook address book, create a merge letter, or add them to what's called a contact list. So quite a lot of flexibility with how you can manage contacts against multiple different companies and with multiple different marketing profiles. I'll come back to some other aspects of marketing classes when we start to look at campaigns. Right, so I'm going to go back to my opportunity. So I've created the basic detail, and what you have is a quote tab. And for those that are familiar with Exo Job Costing, it's exactly the same as the quote tab in Exo Job Costing. So it allows you to enter stock codes for anything that you might wish to quote on. So I just got another question about merging multiple copies of contacts into one. So that sounds like it's a question about if somehow you've ended up with duplicate contacts in your database, can you merge them? Unfortunately, no. There's no feature to do that. You would need to delete the duplicates and leave yourself with one. So just going back, carrying on with my opportunity or my quote, I have the ability to put in different items, different quantities, and you'll see that we've basically got cost, sell, total, markup, margin. If you're familiar with doing sales orders in Exo, this would be looking quite different to the sales order screen where you would have, stock code, quantity, sell price, total. The nice thing about CRM is it allows you to look at markup and margin on every line and markup and margin on an overall quote. So that's commonly something that people want. If you don't want it, these columns and the cost can be hidden from particular people. So there are profile settings available to enable you to hide the markup and margin. Any field in the screen can be changed. So, for example, this margin is obviously, there's something wrong with this item. I've got a cost of $52 and a sell of $5.65, so I wouldn't want to do that. One of them is probably wrong. So I can update the cell, and it will update the markup and the margin. Okay. Alternatively, I could have updated the markup or the margin, and it will update the cell. Okay. So in this one, I'll say I want a 15% margin, and the sell price will change. Any item that you do change the price or the markup or the margin, the color will change color so that you can easily see what's been updated. So items that you're quoting on can be inventory items, they can be labor codes, anything that you need to be able to, produce a quote for a customer or a prospect. And then you can print that. The form I'm using is pretty much a bulk standard form, but obviously like any Clarity form in Exo, either for sales or quotes or jobs, they can all be customized. We've done quotes that show copies of a product image. We've done quotes that separate labor and material into two separate sections and, summarize the material, for example. You can have multiple versions of a quote, so on clicking the print button, it can then give you a list of options of different quote forms that you might use. So commonly what happens with a potential sale or an opportunity is there are, ongoing discussions or communications with the person. So those can be managed in a few ways. You've got history notes, so each time you make a phone call, you can record your details of that. You can create reminders or to-dos to prompt yourself to follow up, and that's done using activities. So activities are a bit like Outlook, tasks or appointments. We use them all the time. You can have different task types. So let's say it's relating to an estimate or new business, and it's, follow up Bob for a purchase order. And I want to be prompted about that on Tuesday. I can say I want to be reminded at a particular time, like I can in Outlook, and I can specify a specific time that this task should be done. I tend to make tasks just basically on the day, and if I'm doing an appointment, then I will nominate the time. Pardon me. So all of those are recorded against the opportunity, and they'll all appear in my task list or to-do list. The other thing that happens a lot with, salespeople is email. So they're often emailing things out and getting information back. You can drag and drop emails from your Outlook inbox or your sent mail against the opportunity and basically have, a history of all the emails that you've dealt with on this particular quote. I'd point out that all those same features, history notes, activities, and documents, are actually available throughout Exo. You can do the same thing on a job, you can do the same thing on a sales order, you can do the same thing on a purchase order as well, I'm pretty sure. So they're not unique to CRM. All right, so I have my quotes that I'm working on, and I can easily see which are mine. I can track the probability of success. I can easily see the value of each one, so I can prioritize, who I'm following up. And I also have my activities or to-do list, which is going to be my, reminders to follow up on various quotes and tasks as I go through. So if I look at my tasks, you can see it's laid out as a calendar. and any appointments would appear in the calendar part, and any tasks appear at the bottom in the task list. I can actually show this as a list view instead of a calendar view, and then it will basically put them in order by due date. If I look at the one that I just created, follow up Bob for a purchase order, I can open that. If I need to, I can drill from the task or activity into the opportunity or quote. I might reprint the quote and send him a copy of it as an email and say, you know, do you want to go ahead? And then I can basically set that to completed. And if need be, create another one before I finish to follow him up the next week. So it's quite a easy way to manage your workflow or to-do list relating to sales. When an opportunity does get accepted or a quote is accepted by your customer or prospect, then in Exo you have several things that this could be converted to. So an opportunity can end up as a sales order quote. Most commonly they usually end up as either a sales order or a job. There doesn't seem a lot of point in creating a sales order quote because you've probably already done a quote from your opportunity, but it is an option that's available. Depending on the user, these options can be turned on or off. So you might have some people that do quotes and they always end up as jobs, and you might have other people that do quotes and they always end up as sales orders. Most of the people on this webinar use job costing, so I'm actually going to convert this to a job. A couple of things happen with that. If the business that I've been dealing with is not a debtor, then obviously in order for a job to be created, they need to become a debtor. So basically we can say either convert this company to a debtor, or don't do that, process it as a cash sale, or don't do anything at all. Users in your system can be set to be allowed to create new debtors or not, so you've got some control over what happens. Just had a question about adding pictures into a quote. The answer to that is yes. Let me just come back to that. So I've basically converted my opportunity to a job. So what Exo does is it opens the job costing screen. You can see that it's copied all the information directly from the opportunity. Quote for maintenance, ABC Boats is now a debtor. It's automatically cross-referenced back to the opportunity. The person I'm dealing with, Bob, is linked to the job. And the items that I quoted for are in the quote tab of the job. I can then update other information, for example, what type of job is this now? What category of job is it? What branch does it relate to? And when is it due to be started and finished? So we're starting Monday, and it's meant to be finished by Wednesday. These are all standard fields in a job. If I save and exit that job, it'll give it a job number, and you basically have a job in your system, and the opportunity normally would get set to closed won, which basically means, you know, we've successfully taken this potential sale through to an actual sale. We haven't invoiced anything yet, we've just created a job, but basically the salesperson's job is completed. They can track progress without logging into job costing because the transaction tab on an opportunity links back to any job or sales order that was created and will tell you the status. I can also drill into ABC Boats' account like I did before, and I would be able to see the job from there, as well as any orders or other transactions that might have happened. Okay, so the salesperson or estimator or whomever it is that's using Exo, has full ability to check on how things are going with any transaction that's come through from what their sales process is. So the question about adding pictures into a quote, I'll answer. It partly depends on what pictures we're talking about. Usually there's two options. They can be pictures of the products that we're quoting, and the easiest way to do that is every stock item in Exo has a web tab where you can basically link the item to a JPEG or an image file of that item. Okay. It's also used to put in additional text, which could be, extended features and benefits that might also print on a quote. Pardon me. Those product images, when a quote is printed, can easily be rendered onto the quote form and printed next to each product. So that's one option. Another option is, depending on the type of business we're talking about, some people are quoting for some kind of maintenance on a machine or an asset, and the person has taken some photos of that machine. So the picture we're talking about putting on the quote doesn't relate to any of these products. What you can do in that case is you can drag and drop the photos against the opportunity as documents, and you might call them, photo 1, photo 2, photo 3. And when we print the quote, it can automatically include the image that's been attached on the Documents tab. So it's certainly possible. Those are the two main ways we go about it. And I, pardon me, can quickly show you an example of one we've done for somebody else. All right, so this is a quote straight out of Exo CRM from the CRM module, which has photos on it. So, it's got all kinds of logos and things. It's got a bit of pre-done, like a little letter section. The products have the images of the products, as well as the extended features and benefits that I showed on the web tab. And it can have terms and conditions at the end and something to sign and all the rest. So that's an example. That's a clarity quote form, a fairly complex one, but certainly doable to produce straight out of Exo rather than in a Word document. So another question is, if there is a linked picture, will it automatically show the picture, or can you choose? Yes, you can choose. That can be done by having a column in the quote tab, so you can effectively select which ones print a picture and which ones don't. So you might have 5 products in the quote, but you only want to show photos for 3 of them. We can add a tick box to basically allow the products to be selected that should print the photo. Alrighty, so we've been through an opportunity and we converted that opportunity as a job. The other thing that a salesperson in CRM can do, so this is for maybe a distribution wholesale business, is they don't need to do an opportunity at all. They can just enter a sales order. Okay, so we've got the standard Exo sales order screen, accessible from within CRM, and a person can do all the same transactions or same sales orders. So I can basically quickly enter a sales order for a customer. Obviously, I can't do a sales order for a prospect. Put in their order number, put in some products. I've got lots of pop-up alerts turned on. And, you know, you basically have a sales order and the system will behave like it normally does if you're operating an Exo business. It will check if you've got stock, give you a back order prompt, do whatever you like. The only thing that a person can't do who is operating in CRM and entering a sales order is they can't supply it or invoice it. They can only enter it. They can generate purchase orders. So they can do everything else. They can check the stock, update back order, check the price, update the price, generate a purchase order. But somebody who is a CRM user only cannot supply or invoice a sales order. That can only be done in Exo Business. Okay, so we've got companies, contacts, opportunities, activities, and orders. And obviously, we've already looked at an example where an opportunity became a job. Someone in CRM also has access just to the standard stock search screen. So like you can in Exo Business and like you can in Exo Job Costing, you can just inquire about stock and see what stock on hand you might or might not have in different locations, check the sell price, check the cost if that's available to the user, look at transactions, look at what orders this item is on from both a sales order and a purchase order perspective, and any jobs it's been allocated to. So a CRM user, subject to their security profile, has the same access to the stock inquiry as somebody using Exo Business. They also have access to reports. So two options, similar to Exo Business. You've got clarity reports available on the drop-down menu, data reports, sales reports, contact reports, stock, opportunity reports, etc. So there tend to be reports very much with a sales CRM focus on them. Obviously, it's not a stock valuation report or a profit and loss. You know, this is the standard list of reports that's available to a CRM user. In addition to that, they've got Sales Analysis Designer, or can have, and it enables reporting to be done of all kinds of ways relating to sales and margin by product or by customer or by sales rep, etc. So if I wanted to do last month sales and margin by customer, by product, then I can just run that report. I'll add a filter to it, and I'm going to say only for a particular salesperson. So you can add that as criteria. Oops. And then run it. And you'll get a matching result. In this case, in my demo system, only one transaction to one customer, labour, so that was probably a job. But you'll get the idea. So the sales analysis tool can do all kinds of sales and margin reports from a sales perspective, by customer, by item category, by customer group, by branch, etc. Okay, so I'm going to move on to marketing campaigns. So these can be used for various purposes. To do outbound marketing, and in particular, track the results of a particular marketing activity. So a marketing activity can be various things. In some businesses, it's just, it could be, you know, a newsletter or an email going out, say, hey, we haven't heard from you for a while, what's up? It can be a telemarketing campaign where we're going to call certain customers and re-establish contacts, try to get an order, etc. Or it can be a little bit of both. It could be advertising. It can be just about anything that you want to manage, track, and record your results of. Okay. So let's have a look at a marketing campaign. So when you create a campaign, you give it a name, you give it a reference. You can have an estimated cost, an estimated revenue, and estimated responses. And you can, in fact, track the actual cost of the campaign if you're using the job costing module. So you can actually create a job. Let me just find one. I'll just use this one. So if you were going to be incurring direct costs, which could be either, you know, invoices from your marketing company or your website company or the radio station because you're doing an ad, and it could also be recording people's time. You can actually capture all of those costs against the job, and then you'll have a true return on investment on any particular marketing campaign. So a campaign can go for a predefined range of dates. It can have stages, new, in progress, complete, for example. You can use activities to manage the steps involved in executing the marketing campaign. So like we were using activities on an opportunity, basically as reminders, you can use the same function and assign different tasks to different people to make sure they get done. So, you know, if it's an advertising campaign, you can create a task to make sure that Greg, you know, places the advertising order with the radio station, because we know he needs to do it by Monday, otherwise we'll miss the date, for example. So you can use activities as reminders. More importantly is the ability to create contact lists. So we were looking at contacts before, and we can use marketing classes against contact lists, against contacts, and we can use that to create a list. But a contact list can actually be a lot more granular than that. Let's say customers with no sales last 6 months. So obviously if it's customers, then I'm getting my list based on debtors. Then I have list building criteria. And there's basic criteria, and then there's what I'd call more advanced criteria. So by default, it automatically is going to add in 2 criteria. One is we only want active customers, and 2, we don't want people who have opted out of receiving emails. So it does that by default. I can then add just about any other criteria that I like, such as a range of postcodes. and you could create a list like that. Every time you hit apply, it will then apply that filter to the list below. To put in a more advanced condition like people who haven't purchased something in the last 6 months, you can use the SQL filter, and this might be something that we might need to help with in some cases, depends on the complexity. We can easily add an SQL statement that searches the database and basically returns the criteria we wanted here, which is, the customer has not had an invoice from us in the last 6 months. So with the advanced conditions, there's almost unlimited filtering you can do. So it could be customers who bought product A but didn't buy product B, customers who either have or haven't traded with you in a certain period of time, just about anything. Then you've got campaign waves. So a campaign wave is a method of communication or what you're actually going to do. So the options are a bulk activity creation, a mail shot process, a social media post, or exporting the list. So let's look at those in order. I'll do a new wave. So one marketing campaign can have multiple campaign waves. So the first one's going to be a mail shot. The mail shot then says, all right, who am I sending it to? And you can click on the mail shot, and very similar to when you're sending out batch invoices and statements, you get the ability to, look up your list. It will check the list of customers, and you can then include an attachment, which might be your newsletter or letter or brochure or whatever it is that you want to communicate to them, and you basically hit go and it'll blast out the email. A bulk activity creation is commonly used if the intention is to contact each customer by phone or by appointment. And this can basically pre-schedule all of those reminders. So we can basically say, right, we want to create tasks. They're contact calls, call for a new order, assign them all to this person. Each one goes for 5 minutes. With an interval of 5 minutes. Start from Monday at 9 a.m. And you can basically see that it will automatically create those tasks. Let me just go back and say I don't want to assign them. So you can have them automatically assigned to the salesperson of the customer that they relate to, or they can be all assigned to a specific person that you choose. Let's do that. Go. And that's done. So then the next thing that would happen was, the person who's doing those calls already has those tasks in their to-do list, and they can work through them. So those are the main things that you do to set up a campaign. When the next thing that happens is, depending on your business, stuff. A campaign might result in new sales orders being entered. A campaign might not relate in sales orders. It might relate in opportunities or quotes. It might result in jobs being created, and it might relate in sales invoices getting created. So long as they're linked to the campaign, they'll all come into your reporting of you know, what's happened with that campaign and how successful or otherwise it's been. So if we quickly look at that, you know, we could do a new sales order or pick an existing one in this case, just to save time. And the tracking needs to be turned on. So in ExoConfig, you can basically add a field so that a sales order, a job, an opportunity, an invoice, you can capture the campaign it relates to. So I don't have that exposed on my sales order. I do have it on my opportunity. Right, so let's just change this to the one I just did. Campaign number 1. So that's all you need to do to, I guess, match a transaction of any kind to a campaign. This is just part of the configuration, is to make that available. And you can see now I've got one opportunity linked to this marketing campaign. If that opportunity got converted to a job or a sales order, then I'd also have a record relating to that. And then when that job or sales order gets invoiced, then I'll have, you know, the actual revenue. Pardon me. All right, so that's marketing campaign. So that's the bulk, really, of the functionality of Exo CRM. It's very much a sales engine with a focus on quotes, orders and jobs, and contact management and marketing campaigns. There is a sales budgeting feature, and the sales budget feature is something most commonly used by an inventory or a wholesale distribution business, not really, well, I guess it could be used by a job costing business. What you're able to do is determine the level that you're going to budget at, and then create budget values for that level. So let's have a look at that. Basically, the level that you can budget at is a combination of either, so on the left-hand side, we're talking about customers, and on the right-hand side, we're talking about stock or items. So you can choose to have a budget for every customer, and that would allow you to put in a budgeted sales value by month for every customer. If you didn't want to do that, you could choose customer account group or customer secondary account group and budget at that level. So that might mean if you had your customers divided into retail versus trade or government versus commercial, then you can budget at that level. So one budget can only be at one level. And then similarly on the stock side, you could choose to budget at an individual stock item level or the primary or secondary stock group. We would advise to use one of the stock group levels rather than an individual stock item, purely because of the volume of records it's going to create. So if you imagine, if you were budgeting by customer and by stock item for a year, then if you had several thousand customers and several thousand stock items, it's basically going to multiply, you know, several thousand customers multiplied by several thousand stock items multiplied by 12 and potentially create millions of budget records, which the system will handle, but when it first creates the budget, it's very time-consuming, and it's also quite a lot of maintenance because you then have to, you know, look at each individual product that you sell and put in a budget. Stock group 2 is probably a more stock group or stock group 2 is probably a better way to do it, which is what we've got here. These are secondary stock groups. And the dashboard is basically showing me, actuals, budget, variance by month for each secondary stock group. You can bring in budget data from Excel and manage it that way. Just had another question on the contact board. Can we import a list? I'm assuming that's a question of a contact list, and the answer is yes. You can import data of almost any kind into Exo using what's called a quick insert template. So you can import customers, stock items, contacts, anything you like. That's a standard feature. Okay, so that's about our hour. Hopefully you found that informative. We've pretty much covered what we planned, which is all the aspects of prospects and customers and contacts and opportunities and quotes. We've talked about contact lists, and those, you could probably break those into two different types, one using marketing classes and the other being a more targeted contact list using more detailed criteria. You can then use those contact lists in marketing campaigns or independently, just use them to create lists and do mail outs and things like that. So that's all we had for today. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, fire away. Otherwise, we will be back for our next one in 2 weeks, and we'll let you know the next topic shortly.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.